Welcome back to the Football Fitness Federation podcast. This is episode 81 with Luke Hemmings, the Sport Science Assistant at Preston North End. Luke, how's things?
I'm good, Ben. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. I see you've gone with the coronavirus haircut there.
Yeah,
I like it.
Got a one guard all over. It's short and simple. My missus used to be a hairdresser, to be fair.
Oh,
But,
buzzing.
she actually tested positive for coronavirus, so she's been a bit rough for a few weeks.
Oh,
so
God.
I just have to go with a one cut all over. Dog's gonna need it soon as well.
Yeah, it depends how long it goes on, doesn't it? For how people are looking.
That's the one. I thought to myself, if I do it now and get it done, by the time if we do go back, I'm not gonna get as much stick as I would do if I went back bald, basically. So it's a tactical decision.
Mate, there's going to be plenty of other people in the same position, I'm sure. Like there's plenty of different haircuts coming out, isn't there, after this break?
Yeah. And what about the weather as well? Trust it to start raining. My isolation finishes tomorrow, and it's just started raining.
Everyone's been outside all this time.
Every day. Typical.
Anyway, mate, I've just mentioned there, Sports Science Assistant at Preston. Just before we go into your build-up to that role, and obviously working with a previous guest in terms of, we'll dive into this in a little bit with Tom Little, but I did speak to Tom before the episode, and he said to me, I've got to speak to you about some of these ridiculous fitness crazy, I don't know what we call them, but what
challenge,
challenges. What have you been up to?
Well, it was a couple of years ago, to be fair. It was Tom's fault if we're gonna get into it. So he asked me I think it was 2016. We decided that we were going to do the football to Amsterdam ride. So we did that, and I absolutely loved it. It kicked off a bug for me, like in terms of raising money and things like that. So I was toying with it for about a year, and then Francis Benali did his Iron France. Do you see that? I went and met him and did a bit of a bike ride with him, and that was like that was the ticket point in terms of getting me to do something. So I toyed with it for a year, and then I can't remember where we were away somewhere in a hotel on a Friday night, and I just come up with this idea, and I thought, right, I'll do it. So cycle from John O'Groats to Land's End, and then run across the Dover. So it's like an L shape for Luke's UK event. And I said it to Tom and that, and they thought I'd had a few too many beers at the hotel. So I ended up doing that. So it was like, did John O'Groats to Land's End in a week. So that was like 140 miles a day. And then I ran across. So it's 14 marathons. I did that in 14 days, and got a lot of backing from like the club and like players and things like that, and ended up raising 30 grand. So it was a few low points, but there's definitely more high points than low, that's for sure.
Mate, that's unbelievable. So I hope you dragged Tom with you.
Oh, Tom was supporting us along the way. I think he was on holiday for the first week, so he was going to do a bit on the bike. I think he was on holiday, so he was just ringing us and stuff. And then obviously getting people to come down south. I didn't think about that, to be honest. Like I had this massive grand finale, finished the 14 marathon idea, and then I rocked up to Dover Castle and there was 3 people there because it's all the way down south, and everyone's back up north.
But supporting you from up north, that was the main thing.
Yeah, definitely.
But some class fundraising there, mate. What was that for? What was there, a charity?
Prostate cancer. I thought it was kind of to do it for that charity because they support the football league, and obviously it affects so many men. And then it ended up Hannah's, like a relative of Hannah's family, ended up passing away in the build up to it. So that was kind of my main incentive to try and raise as much money as we can. So I got a lot of support. I wouldn't have got anywhere near 30 grand if I didn't get the support I did off like the club and the fans and stuff. So it was brilliant. It was good. I ended up having a bit of trouble with my foot, so I fractured my 5th metatarsal on like 3rd day. So in terms of that's what really set, like the cycling was unreal. Like in terms of the scenery, like the places we stopped. I would do it over and over again if I could, but it's the cycling with the running, with the pain, just kind of sent me over the edge a bit. So I had a few dark days running. So people have said, am I going to do anything again? And I said, if I do, it's going to have to be cycling.
That was my next question. So when's the next challenge?
Yeah, well,
I was going to say the off season, but that's probably now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't know what I'm going to do now. We don't know what the crack is, but Yeah, I've always toyed with doing something like Race Across America, but stuff like that, it's in season, so I'd have to do it off my own back, and I wouldn't fancy doing that on my with a tent, like.
Yeah,
So we have to have a think. Maybe a lap of Scotland or something like that.
mate.
Give it a
Quality.
go.
Well, you have to keep us up to date with when you confirm the next one, mate.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
will do. Might be a few years yet.
Anyway, let's dive into you. So I just mentioned there your role, sports science assistant at Preston, obviously working with Tom, under Tom at North
Yeah.
End, and you guys are having a top season as well. But talk us through your pathway to that current role.
All right, yeah. So first of all, I'd like to say thanks for having me on. Basically, it's a brilliant resource you've set up here, and something that I personally use, all the time. You listen to the podcast driving in and home from work whenever I'm on the bike and things like that. And the network meetings are fantastic as well. Try to attend as many as we can when we can. Obviously, work permitting, travel permitting, and things like that. So I'd like to say thanks for that. And secondly, the caliber of guests you've had on. It's really inspiring to see the amount of top quality guests you've got on, and to be fair, it's quite humbling that you've asked me to come on. So that's my bit in terms of saying thanks for you guys on behalf of us lot for setting up this resource that's so useful. And then talking about my background, pretty much similar to everyone that you meet in sport is, they've always had an interest in sport. I don't think I've ever met anyone who's not enjoyed a certain sport or a plethora of sports, and I was the same growing up. I was a rugby league lad from the age of 5. My dad was big into rugby, and he was very old school in terms of his methods, but that's kind of what lit the fire. So growing up, you've met me in person. I'm an absolute dot. I'm tiny, and I'm very, very slow. I've got no fast twitch vibes in my body, so obviously that's a bit of a recipe for disaster when you talk about being successful at rugby. So growing up from the age of 5, I had this idea that I wanted to be a professional rugby league player. Failed miserably because of my my lack of physical capabilities, if you'd say so. But in on reflection, when I talk about that, I think that's what really lit the fire in terms of my interest in sports science, and my desire to help athletes or other people I know to get better at what they want to do, improve their physical capabilities, get fitter, faster, stronger. So from growing up, my dad was like introducing me to, obviously it's not academic style because he wasn't academic, he never worked in sports, but he would introduce you to like reading articles about how to get faster, or watching YouTube videos because he was rugby mad. So I always grew up in an environment where we were trying to get better. We were in the back garden trying to if we did this, or if we did this type of running, would we get better? So that's where it kind of, I kindled a love for it really. And I was lucky enough to go through academia knowing that's what I wanted to do. So I was very driven in terms of, I knew that I wanted to go to college and do sports science, so I sailed through that. That was 2011 to 2013. In the 2011 year, you do a work experience module. So I was lucky enough that my dad knew someone at Warrington Wolves Academy, first team, and he put me in contact with some of the academy guys, and they were very accommodating and had me down there for a few weeks on my module. And that really opened up my eyes to the difference between theory and application, and it really like kindled a fire to how you can integrate both to get best of both worlds, and applied practice. So that was brilliant. And then my second year at college was 2012 2013, because I was so passionate. I loved doing the work. I loved doing all the essays. So I finished about 5 weeks early. So I'm finishing college, and and then all my mates are still at college, but I had 12 weeks free. So I thought I need to do something here to kind of improve. And my dad was always saying, volunteer. So I've got some personal contacts at the club. I contacted those and asked, can I just come in and have a few weeks and learn? And it was through the pre-season that year in 2013 that I joined. And to start off with, it was just like a once a week kind of thing. And then I was offered like an opportunity where they'd say like, you don't have to come in, but if you do want to, For me, at that time, I had 12 weeks free. I was working at the hotel at nights. I wanted to be there every day because I was just learning so much. I was learning the soft skills, like, learning different drills, different type of running, and it was through the pre-season. So I just kept turning up, really. I bet they were, I bet they were getting sick of me, to be fair. They thought, oh, he's back again asking more questions. But that was me for 12 weeks. And then I went through, got offered a place on a PT course, a personal training course at Runshaw. And I toyed with it a bit. And the main factor for taking it was free because I was under 19. So for me, that was a big factor. And the second factor was I could see how, through volunteering at the club, how having those skills in a gym-based kind of area could apply to football. So I thought to myself, it would be a perfect opportunity to learn more physiology, learn, different kind of training methods, learn how to deal with different clients, because throughout the modules we had to work with different clients of different sexes, different ages. So although at the time I didn't know what I was doing, I was developing skills of how to communicate effectively, program, all relevant things to football I was being able to apply throughout that year. At the same time, I was doing still at Preston, so that was just once a week, the PT course. So I was just going in. It was on a Wednesday, so I was in Monday, Tuesday. They were off Wednesday anyway, so that was perfect. PT course Wednesday, and then in Thursday, Friday. I was just turning up as much as I could. And then I was offered again at the end of that PT course. I was offered the chance to do some like extracurricular courses, so like to more like around group sessions, so kettlebell classes, spin classes, and circuit training. So I took those because again they were a discounted rate, and I thought to myself, whilst I'm free to do these things, I'm only gonna be able to take things from it. It might not be the best thing for me in the world, but I will learn something from it. So that was me, jumped on those bandwagons and cracked on, did that throughout the 2013, 14, and then went into uni 14, 15 year. When I was going into uni, I was having a few conversations with people, and I didn't know that part-time uni was a thing. And then that was kind of chucked at me like the last few months of like enrollment. So I did a bit of digging, found out that it didn't affect what you came out with at the end. It was still the same degree. So I was at a bit of a crossroads. Do I go full-time uni, have to leave Preston, which is something I didn't want to do, or do I go part-time, have to extend how long I was studying for, but still have the ability to go to Preston? And for me, like, it was a no-brainer, really. I wasn't bothered about doing 3 extra years because I was learning so much at Preston and I was being given so many opportunities that I just thought that was the right thing for me to do. And still, when I reflect on what I did, I think it was the perfect opportunity for me to do, and definitely the right decision. So I did the first half of my first year, and then coming out of that, going into the second half of my first year, Ronan left, who was basically Tom's assistant. He went to Burnley, and then Tom basically asked, and the manager at the time, Simon Gerson, asked if I wanted to step up and kind of be the assistant. And I'll always remember that day. It's probably one of the proudest days of my life when they came in with a contract, and they gave me the contract and said, do you want to go and have a look at it and take some time? I said, no, give me that pen. I couldn't wait to sign the contract. Honestly, it really was the proudest moment of my life. So then pretty much from there, 15, 16 onwards, I was the assistant for Tom, and I was doing part-time studying. So it was basically a night school with a man-met one. So it's pretty hectic, but I loved it. And I've always had the mantra that if it's easy, it's not worth doing. So even though it was a struggle, for me, I think that I was getting the best of both worlds. I was getting all the applied knowledge, and I was going through uni and getting the theoretical underpinning. So for me, those from the 2011 year through to the beginning of last year was amazing period of my life in terms of I've learned so much. I went through all my academia, and I was lucky enough to be able to work at the club, and they just kept gifted me more opportunities to increase my knowledge and increase my hands-on application of things like that. So it really was a really good period of my life. One thing that I think I missed out on as well that I did that I think is important for, if anyone's coming through and looking how they can improve themselves in terms of like becoming more employable, or they've come out of uni and they're a bit of a lost thing to do. One thing I did do throughout my college career was I volunteered at a Sunday League football club. And it was because my dad's mate had a team and they were 16 and 17, so they were pretty much the same age as me. But he was saying they're struggling in terms of how, they can't last a full game, the warm up, there's lads getting injured and things like that. Would you come and do some sort of programming for us? So it was by no means the top of the chain. It was literally a Sunday League. You train Tuesday, you train Thursday, the game on a Sunday. But I just took over, and it was a really good time of my life because I was able to take the ideas that I was getting from Tom and the physios and things like that, and apply them to a setting that I was able to, that I wouldn't have been able to at that time if I didn't get the ideas from the club, if I wasn't volunteering, and I wasn't volunteering at this Sunday League club, I wouldn't have been able to apply those. And I think that really helped me with my hands-on, like handling of different types of players, different, subgroups, different ages as well, because they were different ages. I ended up doing quite a few different ages for the same team because they trained on the same night. So it was just a really good time for me to be able to kind of apply what I was learning. And I think that helped me in terms of my practical skills massively. So I would recommend that to anyone, is just volunteer wherever you can. And don't, just do anything you can to volunteer, even if it, like I said, just a Sunday League team, you can at least practice and apply some of the theoretical underpinnings that you've learned.
Mate, that's class, absolutely quality, and it actually ties in really nicely with the recent episode with Liam Anderson, and we spoke about using opportunities, and we were referring a bit more to like internships, and I know yours was like, I suppose you could refer to it as an internship, even if it wasn't an official internship, but
yeah,
you can easily waste those opportunities as well, can't you? And it sounds like you just didn't do that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think you can. I think you kind of think, well, I might do that. Like I had the opportunity, and when they offered me it, I thought Tuesdays and Thursdays I was working at the hotel, so I was kind of strapped for a bit of time. But I thought to myself, well, it's a perfect opportunity to be able to practice what I've learned, and in a safe environment as well. And there's a squad environment. There's not many opportunities you get at that age where you can apply stuff to a group of people. It might, like the personal training course was good because it was, it was applying like theory and stuff to a single person, but you're not working with a group of people there, and you can work with different age groups. I was, like I say, I was 16, 17, so some of them had attitude, some of them didn't want to be there, some of them were there because the mum were telling them they had to go, some of them were really keen, but they were, they weren't gifted athletically and wanted to do more. So you end up like learning how to deal with different people and different styles and different personalities. The soft skills are massive, and that was a great time to kind of practice them.
Yeah, definitely. And it just shows the amount of opportunities out there as well, because the Sunday League teams, Saturday League teams, like there's so many chances for you to just reach out, and people will snap your hand off, won't they, when you do reach out. So I think it's great advice that you've given in terms of your journey so far for any students or people coming out the back of, when you've gone right back to college there in terms of getting your first bits of experience. There'll be a lot of people in a similar sort of situation that want to end up in football. You have to do that groundwork, don't you?
Yeah, I think just putting yourself out there to do it as well. Like being a bit of a yes man in terms of, if an opportunity comes up, don't turn it down. Like you might be busy, and you might, I had to turn a few shifts down at the hotel. I was working at part-time, but for me that was a no-brainer because I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. I wanted to, be involved in sport, and so being able to apply the skills in that setting definitely benefited me. So just take the opportunities you get, because if you say yes to someone and they come around and they need another opportunity in the future, they need someone to fill a role, and you were a person who was so positive about taking the role, and you gave your 100% to everything, they're gonna be a good reference for you, even if there's a job going that they know they're a good reference for you because you're so positive and you worked hard to kind of get where you were. So that's a big bit of advice that I would give, really.
And we'll move it on now to, you now work with essentially, and I hope he don't listen because I'm not blowing his trumpet too much,
No,
but
it does.
But one of the pioneers of sports science in football, really, and like in Tom Little, and anyone that's not listened to the episode with Tom, episode 24, like he's got a vast amount of experience in football at numerous clubs, and I know some of the top work he does with you at Preston. But what are some of the biggest lessons you've taken from working with Tom?
See, when you made me laugh when you asked me this question, I was about to text you back and say, look, we could do a full episode on this if you want, because I don't know where to start. Because honestly, he's been at the club with me for I think it'd be on 7 years now. So I've been there 8 years, and Tom came the year after I'd been there for a year volunteering. He's been there for 7 years, and I say this to everyone whenever I speak to another practitioner. So I might, Liam, or if we have a game at our place, like a bounce game, you get time to talk to the the other team's kind of sports science lads or whatever, and I always end up mentioning like how much of a good environment Preston is, and how I come away and genuinely come away every day having learned something. I think that comes down to asking questions. I like asking questions a lot because I think that's how you learn. If there's a scenario that's come up on a day that I've not experienced before, I would ask Tom's advice. So in that aspect, there's so much that I could talk you through that he's taught me. But if I was to kind of cut it down to the main areas, first of all, I think he's helped me massively with my soft skills, my confidence in handling players, different personalities, and trusting me with their experiences is been second to none. Like the trust he's instilled in me, and the club and Tom has instilled in me, has been huge. I think I always remember going back to we're doing some CPD. He does a lot of CPD with us, like in terms of it might just be half an hour, but it's regular, and that those are brilliant opportunities to learn. So I remember the first one we did, it was warm-ups. So we were just going in the 3G, just going through some warm-ups, and he was putting us through the warm-ups just so you get a feel of how it feels, and about rest work ratios and things like that, and we did those. And then he said, so like when we next have a recovery session where the lads who played are inside and the other lads are going to go out, you'll take the warm-up. And it was that week. I knew it was coming up on the Sunday, and I was terrified. Saturday night, I remember I was sat on my computer. I'd planned it through to the microsecond, and I had it planned out and everything. And I really think those kind of things help, because he instills a confidence in you to do it. So it gives you a confidence. And like I say, he's helped me massively with those soft skills. I think they're second to none. Networking, he's helped me with that. He's introduced me to loads of practitioners that I probably wouldn't have had the confidence to approach on my own if like I'd gone to a conference. And the fact that he's just so willing to learn all the time, and it's so refreshing to see that you listen at the network meetings, that you go to a network meeting and the practitioners who are, you see at the top of the game, they've achieved so much, like your Tom Littles, your Dave Carolans, your Darren Burgess, they're always at the conferences because they've got such a hunger to continue learning. They understand that the game always moves and it never stands still. So for me, that was big in terms of like, once you're at the club, doesn't mean that you can't continue learning, can't continue improving yourself and your team's practice. So go into the conferences is a big one. So I'll try and go as much as I can, and same with Tom. So I'll attend with Tom, and then networking, get a good chance to talk to people, and then things like this come up where you see other practitioners, and because you've had such a genuine connection with them, it's just so refreshing. And I think David spoke about it in his episode on the podcast about crossing the white line. That was like those type things is things that you pick up off those practitioners that have been around so long, that I don't think I would have got through any kind of academia. So those lessons are massive. Obviously, his practical skills are second to none. So like all his periodizations, guru in that, small-sided games, skill-based conditioning, what you spoke about in his episode. He taught me, which was a concept to me that I hadn't learned, about how you can manipulate drills to get different physical adaptations and biomechanical adaptations out of drills. So for me, they were massive. And about manipulating drills, again, like I say, manipulating them to achieve different outcomes. was something that I wasn't aware of until he spoke to me about it. And I don't know if you've seen his drill database is magnificent. So I remember when first week I'd stepped up, I asked him what the name of what a drill he did. So he said, he says, I tell you what, I'll give you my database, my drill database, so you can cross-reference the drills, because we're trying to work on like we've got a predictive drill database, so the names have got to match up. So I've got my pen drive, plugged it in, I opened it up, and I was like, whoa, size of that. So things like being proactive. So I've picked that up off him, be proactive, set up your databases, work on little things. They might not be implemented, but they might help you in the long run. So the drill database might take a lot of time to set up, but it comes to COVID-19 and you need to set a program for lads. Instead of having to write up the drill, this you do this, it's already there. So you pull it out of your database, you put it on your program, and you give it to the lads. So things like that about being proactive helps you in the long run. I know it might take a bit of dog work, but it definitely does. It's more autonomous in terms of getting it out there really quick. So things like that, being proactive, setting up drill databases, working on different progresses, things like that. Another thing I think he taught us early on was about being flexible. So like you have a program, you have a philosophy, but you have to be flexible to meet the demands of the manager or the different demands of different players, because you might have this all singing, all dancing S&C program, but a lad comes in and he can't squat. You need to be flexible to kind of adapt his program, but keep your theoretical underpinnings the same for the lads who can. Being flexible, you talk about, managers coming in. How would you adapt your philosophy the same to meet their demands? Sorry, but then on the contrary, another thing he also told me was about having your non-negotiables. So things that you think that are huge and they've got the scientific backing, things that you think are really important that you need to implement. And if you don't, and if the players or anyone around that don't meet those standards, there will be consequences. So it's about having your non-negotiables, but being flexible to fit those non-negotiables into the philosophy of the manager or the players you've got. I think was a massive learning curve for me, to be honest.
And just on that as well, because you'd have crossed over some different first team managers, I'm guessing, in your time at the club.
Yeah, just two. So I started off with Simon Grayson.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 4 seasons, and then Alex Neil came in. So that was good for me as well. It was another great experience. New manager, different like playing style, different like the setup of the weeks, periodization was different. So it was good to see how we had to adapt to meet those demands, and how we had to kind of adapt and help the players adapt to fit a certain like periodization model. So that was a really good experience and something that definitely helped me learn from that.
Because I know that's basically what you've mentioned there, isn't it? In terms of being flexible, I know from the players that can be a day-to-day thing that you've got to assess, but in terms of the manager, it's great to, and this is obviously what practitioners like Tom have been through. They've been through a number of different styles and models and had to apply, and that non-negotiables is really key, isn't it? Because that is your underpinning knowledge and experience, and they're things that you've got to get into the program, but be adaptive in the same situation.
Yeah, definitely. Like, and going back to the adaptability and the flexibility of players it's like you've got to have those non-negotiables so that the players that might need different things, when they come to that certain drill that's a non-negotiable, they know that they have to fit, they have to meet those standards, or else there will be consequences. And I think that links massively into philosophy, something that I was aware of, but like in terms of Tom's really implemented, like you read about the All Blacks, they have a style and they have like non-negotiables and sweeping the sheds and those aspects, and he really hammers them home. And I think if you have your non-negotiables, they can all intertwine and they can all like benefit each other. So you have a non-negotiables for your fitness side of it. So if you don't meet this standard, there will be consequences where we will need to kind of step in and see what the issue is and how we can resolve that to get you to that standard. So I think it's massive in terms of like setting a good culture as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm pretty sure there's a quote in there somewhere about learning from previous people that have written books and things like that. And that's essentially what you're doing when you're working with practitioners like Tom that have got a vast array of experience. You've got to take their experience, haven't you? Because it's essentially shortcutting a good few years worth of experience, and you have to develop your own as well. I'm not saying that's not the case. You still have to go through things and realize things that work, things that didn't work, how to be adaptive. But using someone like him, and obviously not just Tom, there's a lot of other practitioners out there that are in the same sort of boat, is vital, isn't it? Having that sort of mentor figure.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. In terms of like you said, the mentor side of it is brilliant, because someone that I can contact whenever, and he will offer advice. I asked some advice before coming on here, and he was more than willing to offer me advice in terms of how to come across and whatever. So in terms of that mentor side of it, it's been fantastic, and it's definitely helped me improve as a person as well as a practitioner as well. I think is really set, and I think when you look at football and you look at sport, we spoke about this earlier, you have to be a good person, in my opinion. So helping me improve as a person and as a practitioner at the same time kind of helps me like twofold, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I know a lot of people will be forgetting about the current season right now and the standings and everything, but you guys are having a fantastic season
Oh yeah, yeah,
so far, and
brilliant.
hopefully the season does finish and we get wrapped up and all the rest of it. But what I wanted to talk to you about is some aspects of the work that you guys do that you've put in place that's had the biggest impact.
Oh yeah, so kind of since I've been there, what have we put in place that's had the biggest impact on our what we're doing? All right, yeah. Well, obviously since I've been there, like I said, for 7 years, so there's been a number of things that we've implemented as a multidisciplinary team to kind of improve performance or improve lifestyles or certain aspects of a player we've looked to try and improve. I think the first thing that's important to say is, and it's a philosophy that we have at the club, is if it's not going to affect some form of your daily routine. So if it's not going to bring up a conversation with a player, if it's not going to provide some sort of objective scores, is there any need to implement it? So obviously there's so much tech and so on and so forth out there these days that you could spend millions on implementing all these ideas, but we have a like a philosophy that if it doesn't affect us in a certain way, it's not backed by science, doesn't affect us, and we can't implement it with with ease in terms of relaying it to the players or manager, is there much need in implementing it? So I think that was a good lesson as well. Is you come from uni and you think, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, but is it really going to affect your practice on a day-to-day basis? So like I say, we look for things that have got peer-reviewed evidence base and is something that we can fit into our philosophy that isn't going to take anything away from performance, isn't going to take away time on the pitch, isn't going to take away time for lads to be resting up, and it's something that we can implement and relay those messages to the players. So when I first started, we had only had heart rates. So for us, a natural progression to be able to kind of look at objective measurements, test players. So you can use it for testing type drills, or you can use it to manage and periodize your week. For us, bringing in the GPS units was kind of a big one for me. That was the first kind of intervention that I saw at the club. Is we went from using heart rates for half a year to implementing GPS, and obviously that's had a big impact on how we monitor players, how we periodize certain players during off season, in season, all those all those time frames, and how we can kind of manage game loads as well. So when I first started, you weren't allowed to use the units in games. So then now that that's been approved by the FA and the PFA or whatever, we're using that, and you tend to find that you can manipulate loads much easier once you know what a game load is. And there's a lot of research out there. Well, there isn't lots of research, but there's a lot of like Jack Sharkey, Adam Owen type thing where they look at the percentage of matches. So if you didn't have that game data, you wouldn't have been able to kind of relate it to a percentage of match. So that was a big intervention for us. Something that Tom brought in quite early on was like educational meetings. I think have had a big kind of added a big advantage to us. So like it might just be a 15-minute meeting with the nutritionist Mark, or it might be 10 minutes with Mick Kearns, the S&C, or 10 minutes with Tom, where they just speak about things that we think we can improve. So nutrition, you know, why are we doing these things that we're implementing, etc. And I think it helps as well build into a philosophy. So there's lots of transparency, so everyone knows why we're doing certain things. So we don't just chuck something in the program and then say, by the way, we're doing this. We have like an educational meeting, not too sciencey, so we don't overcomplicate it. But this is why we're doing it, and this is why we're bringing it in. So I think those have been really, really beneficial to us as a squad. Talking on the nutrition side of things, I think ColourFit's helped with our lads. Tom's massive on kind of teaching lads the practical skills. So we take lads shopping, teach them. We have like cooking classes at the training ground, things like that. And you definitely see a difference in players' performances or body composition through those implementations. And I think the new software that we brought out ColourFit now is just going to elevate that even more, because you've got your administrative rights, so you can kind of periodize players' nutrition. And I just generally tend to find that since we've implemented those strategies, the lads are more receptive to nutrition things. They're sending you, oh, look what I made last night and things like that. And whereas they used to just have ravioli or whatever it was that was easy they could make. So that as an intervention, I think, has had a massive impact on performance, recovery, body composition, etc. Next, I'd probably say Tom brought the sub-max yo-yo in. So we started off max early on, but we tended to find that we couldn't implement that so much throughout the season. So because it's a maximal effort test, so you can't really do that in the middle of a period where you've got 5 games in 3 weeks or whatever, because it's just the added load that the lads don't need. So we brought in a sub-max yo-yo test, and that's part of our non-negotiables. Like the lads, this is why we're doing it, and we're doing it, and that's it type thing, because it allows us to review the heart rate post-test and the heart rate 1 minute post-test, and it helps us highlight and, like I said before, bring up those communication pathways of this player's not recovering as well as he was. Is there an intervention we can step in there and have a chat? It might be something where they've just had a kid and they're not sleeping as much, so the heart rate's naturally going to be elevated. But it's something that I think that we've added that allows us to have these conversations. It's easy implemented. It takes 10 minutes. The test is 9 minutes long. You can do that after a warm up, and it adds minimal load in terms of there's no real overload from it. So it's perfect, and we get our test scores, and there's a really good like I say culture around that. We have conversations with any lads that we think is flagging up, and on the contrary to that, we kind of applaud any lads that have been working hard and have shown increases and whatnot. So we kind of base that throughout the year, and they've got the results and they can see the results. So for me, that was a big one in terms of the non-negotiable side of it, and something that's helped us massively improve. And then again, the last thing I'd say that I've seen implemented, again, the push by us as staff, is those non-negotiables. So we brought in certain things that need to be done. So your max speed strides, we were implementing those, and lads were kind of getting around 85% and stuff. So we had them in, and we had a meeting, and we're saying, this is the evidence of why being above 90% of your max speed helps, increases fascicle length, makes you more robust, which means to you as a player, you've got more chance of being out there on a Saturday or a Tuesday playing. So we implemented those, and I think that's massively helped with soft tissue injuries, and it's had a real clear buy-in. One thing I think that's helped massively with that as well is since the vector units have come out, we've had the ability to have live monitoring. So the lads know that we're watching. Like, you know, that's the time where we're like Big Brother and you need to be above that certain marker. And ever since that, we've had no problems. Lads are good as gold anyway, so they'll always put it in, but might just be a little chat with a lad, you know, come on, you need to slip it in an extra gear. We need you above a certain threshold. So that's helped massively. And then we brought in like a leaderboard system in the gym as well, because we were trying to like monitor lads and things like that. But we've added like this leaderboard style system, and Tom brought Mick Kearns, who's helped massive with the S&C. He runs like the S&C, runs the programming, and him and Tom kind of converse about, you know, what we can do to overload or periodize the weights. And we've added a leaderboard again. And basically the leaderboard's up in the gym for everyone to see. And Mick puts up certain targets per week. And you're in green if you've got the target, you're in red if you've not, and you know how below or how above the target you are. So for me, that's added a real culture around that, because lads were just like cruising, but this has now allowed us to kind of review it and think they need to be pushing to these certain standards. We've got these non-negotiables. This is the bottom level. You need to be above that. And for me, that's helped massively as well in terms of the touch wood, soft tissue injury rate and so on and so forth, and the culture as well. There's a really good gym culture now. And for me, like Tom's mentioned it in his previous podcasts, is, you know, it's all about having really solid fundamentals done well. That's more important than having a really old singing, old dancing program done poorly. So for us, it's those nailing down those fundamentals and doing them to a best of our ability. And I think that filters down from the top all the way down to the players, you know, and it feeds off the staff onto the players, that we're all there to try and improve us as a club and basically improve our performances on the weekend. So yeah, those non-negotiables I think have been I talked about those in a time frame, as in what we brought in when and what I think's been most important. And the non-negotiables kind of brought in beginning of last year, and I think they've massively helped in terms of our application to the players.
And just to expand on that, obviously this season's been a bit, and it's not over yet, but been a top season, and it hurts me to say this as a Wiganer, but you guys are flying and have been for the majority of the season. But have you seen a shift this season? Because obviously over the seasons you've been involved with the club, you've had seasons where you've been doing well and then probably not so well. But then this season everything seems to have come together. And I think you've probably described from the sports science point of view why a lot of that has happened. Like, it's a lot of groundwork that goes into it behind the scenes. But have you seen any sort of shift from this season with the players, with the management team, whatever it is, or the club as a whole, that has sort of led for that increase in performance? Or do you just think that things have just come together?
I think it's just a natural progression of us as a club. Everyone, you know, when you talk about the club, talks about how much they enjoy being there, how good the people are. And I think the players and you know, they know that everyone's there to help them. So no one's there for their own benefit. You know, like we're not there for our egos. Everyone there is working day in, day out to get Preston to the highest level, function at the highest level that we can. So I think it's just a combination of just hard work from everyone, from all angles. I don't think there's anything you can put your finger on and say that's what changed us. You know, we've got a manager who's extremely hungry to improve technically, tactically, physically, demands the most of the players. And the players are just honest. They'll give you 100% and everything. And I think that's why everyone talks about how it's such a good environment, because everyone gets on. You know, there's no cliques. All the staff are mates. You know, everyone works extremely hard, to the hardest, you know, to the best of their ability, works day in, day out towards that. And the lads just feed off that and enjoy being there. And that's why I think they give you 100%, because they know that everyone there is giving 100% from the top all the way, you know, all the way through. You know, everyone gets along. So I think that's, you know, the underpinning factor is everyone's working towards the same goal. And if everyone's working the same way, you're only going to go one way, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And I think looking from the outside, but also speaking to Tom and yourselves before, like you've mentioned in the episode a few times, and I was going to bring it up at the time, but I didn't want to interrupt you. You said about the lads being on board and being, I think you said they're good lads and things like that. And those things are the reasons where things come together then, don't they? And we know that seasons and results they have a lot of different aspects to it. It's not just a case of sports science, meaning that we win leagues or anything like that, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. And I think you've touched on so many different aspects of what you guys do, but the club as a whole as well, in terms of the whole approach and the whole preparation for games. And I think there's a lot of that coming together, and a lot of rationale behind why you're having the season you're having.
Yeah, massively. Like I say, everyone has the same identity. There's a lot of clarity for the club that this is the goal. And I think as a club, we have non-negotiables and set standards, and we all work above those. So like you say, you're only going to work one way. So yeah, that's what I wouldn't say there's one defining factor. I just think that it's down to hard work really, and desire from the players.
Definitely. And then just to wrap us up, mate, what I wanted to ask you, because a lot of people will be in a similar position or wanting to even get into your position, but what are your plans for the future? Have you got aspirations to go to head of department, or what's the future for you?
You know, I think that's something I would aspire to get to. But the current position I'm in at the moment, like I said to you early on, I'm consistently learning, improving day in and day out, and not just practical. I'm theoretically improving, learning all the time. So for me, I'd love to be like a head of performance type role, and something I aspire to be. I like to push myself and push myself out my comfort zones and things like that. But yeah, at the moment, just continue learning, asking questions, networking where I can, jumping on board things like this. I was massively nervous before jumping on. Just like I say, pushing yourself out your comfort zones, and trying to improve myself and my underpinnings, and kind of mold my philosophies really. So that's my plan really, is just keep learning, keep improving, keep putting myself out there, and trying to mold myself to be a better practitioner day in day out really.
Awesome, mate. Well, I mean, there's so much information you've gone into there, and so much depth you've gone into on the preparation that you guys do. So I really appreciate how honest and open you've been with that, because I think that, and if people listen to the episode with Tom, they can see all the top work that you guys are doing. So there was no need to be nervous. You absolutely smashed it, mate.
Cheers. Yeah, I think like I say, you talk back to lessons from Tom and things like that, and as a as a discipline, there's no secrets. Everyone's doing similar things and applying it differently, but it's all about believing in what you do, and fitting your philosophies around how you do it to kind of get the maximum for you as a team. And yeah, there's not, like I said, there's no secrets. Everyone knows the science behind what we do and why we do it. So if being open helps us as a discipline get better, and performance is going to get better, then it's only going to help us in the long run. So yeah, I think just being transparent, obviously, where you can, is important, and helping each other as well. Like, I don't think I would have got anywhere near I have now if I didn't have help from, well, I know I wouldn't if I didn't have help from people like Tom and other men, other people that I can look up to and ask advice for, and people have helped me massively along the way. So by doing things like this, just going to help other people, I think is a big part of the game, really.
No, definitely, right. And if people want to reach out, Luke, if they've got questions, or they want to touch base with you, maybe it's students that want a bit of advice on certain things, or people that are at clubs, where's the best place to do it?
Yeah, I'm by no means a guru or anything, but I'm always happy to have a chat with anyone and bounce some ideas off. I peck a few people's heads quite a lot, and I appreciate those people spend some time talking to me. So if anyone wants to get in contact, you can put my email on the notes, which is just Luke_Hemmings@outlook.com, or they can reach me on Twitter. I think my name's Luke.Hemmings too. I have to be careful because the singer from 5 Seconds of Summer is called Luke Hemmings, so all the names are taken up. So I think it's Luke.Hemmings too, but you can just put it in your notes, and yeah, anytime, email, a text message, anything, I'll help where I can or talk wherever I can.
Awesome, mate. Well, I really appreciate you giving up your time. It was class going through all that. I think there's loads of takeaways in that one. So thanks a lot for coming on.
No worries again. Like I said, it's very humbling that you've asked me to come on because you've had some absolute gurus. So thanks to you as well, Ben.
No worries, mate. We'll catch up soon.
Yeah, stay safe.